to distract myself from the fact that someone hacked into my bank account and stole all of my money, we are going to be talking about my 5-star reads of 2021 so far, and Gotham is going to be on my butt the whole video. So, this is in no particular order. This is just going based off of what Goodreads shows me. So the first 5-star read of the year that I want to talk about is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Last Hours trilogy, and this follows the children of the people from the Infernal Devices series trilogy. And I obviously gave this 5 stars. I absolutely adored this sequel. I think it's leading the story in a fantastic way. I loved seeing kind of the quiet love that we saw slowly building while also ramping up the angst, and I loved the ending to this. I think seeing the glimpse of hope of what James and Cordelia could be was really beautiful, and I liked a lot of the wrap-ups of a lot of storylines that I was just kind of getting a little bit tired of. So I think that this was a fantastic sequel. And something that I'm noticing with Cassandra Clare is that her series are becoming less about plot and more about character development, which I absolutely love. I'm way more of a character-driven person, and so the crux of the story really starts, of the plot, really starts a couple hundred pages in, which I absolutely love. The next 5-star of the year for me was actually a reread, and that is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series. I read this originally last year, gave it 4 stars. I reread it and gave it 5 stars. I absolutely love this story. I think, like I said, I'm a character-driven person, so seeing the character work that goes into this story with Feyre and seeing how far Feyre comes from the first one to this one is absolutely astonishing. I think Sarah J. Maas did great work in this one. We won't talk about the third one. The third one doesn't exist. But I absolutely adored my reread of this, and it will definitely be a book in the series that I continue to reread as the years go on. My next 5-star read of the year was Devil's Line. This is a manga series following your heroine who finds out that her best friend is a vampire, and she is saved by a half vampire, half human who is kind of working for this company that seeks out criminal vampires and extinguishes them, and he kind of becomes a little bit obsessed with her. This is the exploration of that relationship. Mega cute and kind of angsty, and I loved the world that was created in this volume. I'm not usually I don't usually rate the first volume in most manga series just because it's usually a lot of setup, but I am thrilled about this one. So then my next 5-star is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is inspired by pre-Columbian civilization. This is about a city called Tova, and in this city there are several different clans, and they are overseen by the Watchers, who has a leader called a priest, and you are following several points of view, including someone who is destined to become a shield for a clan's leader, a person that might not be exactly what they seem, and they are destined to take over a clan, or so people think. Someone who's kind of just along for the ride, and the priest for the Watchers group, and the accumulation of all of their plans coming together. This is absolutely one of the best fantasies I think I've ever read. It's so beautifully crafted, the way the stories all come together, and each point of view in each person feels very intentional, and no point of view is lacking. There was never a point in this story where I would go to one point of view and dread reading their chapter. I really, really loved this. It was so fantastic, and I would highly recommend to anybody that likes fantasy at all. If you are concerned about reading this, about the accessibility or anything, it's so well done and so easy to get through. The next 5-star read that I want to talk about is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is the story of Enchanted, who is about 17 at the time of the story. She competes in a singing competition, and she meets Corey Fields, who is less than fantastic. She enters into a less than ideal relationship with him. She has to overcome a lot of abuse, and interwoven into the story of Enchanted, being in this abusive relationship, you find out that she wakes up one morning and he has been murdered, and there's blood on her hands. So you are kind of leading up to that event and figuring out the true story. Fantastic. I think if you are able to handle the content in this, then it is well worth the read. Tiffany D. Jackson is a fantastically gripping author. She's so good at writing intentional dialogue, intentional world building, everything. There is so much realism, but also a level of hope that kind of carries you through the story, and you feel like even though these bad things are happening to your characters, that there is something at the end of the tunnel for them. And I just think that this story is so good. This is often compared to like a fictionalized version of the R. Kelly situation, but she, in the author's note, even says that this is just the very common story of what Black women are like when they come forward about their abuse or when they're put in situations like this. So very well worth the read if you can handle the subject matter. So my next 5-star read was actually very shocking for me, and it is Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. This was actually a recent read. It is a second chance marriage of convenience, or marriage in trouble story, and it actually made me cry at some points. Reading a lot of the reviews, I think a lot of people have some issue with the more like alpha personality of the hero, but I think he's incredibly realistic. Let me tell you the premise before we dive in. So this is a marriage in trouble, and the heroine feels like she is in a rut. She's always had this dream of opening her own restaurant, and she feels like she is very stifled. Her relationship with her husband it's been very passionless. They don't really talk to each other, and she is tired. In the beginning of the book, she decides that she is going to leave. He is determined to win her back, and they decide that they are going to go to couples therapy and kind of work through their problems. Now, the hero in this story, like I said, is very much an alpha male. Now, as someone who has my entire family, every man in my family has been in the military at some point, doesn't matter what branch it's in. So the things that the hero in this story experiences, he is a veteran. He has been to war, and when he comes back, he is very different than how she remembers him, and that is part of the problem. She feels like she has lost the man that she fell in love with. And as someone who has experienced that in my own life, who has seen people go through things like that, a lot of people go through things like that, I completely, 100%, my heart broke for him. I understood where he was coming from. I understood the kind of toxic mindset of men always have to be strong and they can't show their pain and they just have to swallow it, and men's job is to protect, and I 100% get that. The important thing about this story, I think, is that he doesn't change his core beliefs. He doesn't change the core person that he is. He is an alpha male from beginning to end. He just learns how to talk. He learns how to open up. He learns what the important things that his wife needs in the story. And it was honestly so beautiful. There's so many lines in this that made me tear up, and specifically the hero's experience in the story just really hit me really hard. And the relationship is beautiful, and the first book in the series, a lot of people had an issue with, especially like the infantilization of the female main character. And I think that if you had an issue with that, you're not going to have an issue here. If you don't like alpha males, maybe avoid this one. But I think the story was beautiful, and I just was sobbing inside. So next up was actually another recent read, and that is Interior China by Charles Wu. A very short story. I listened to the audiobook, but I think it might be written in verse. It's also written from a second person point of view. It's a very complex story, but on the surface, it is following a guy who has always wanted to be in the entertainment industry, and because of his heritage, it's predominantly, this is about really all Asian ethnicities, but this one is about Chinatown, which is the idea of like the Asian stereotype in the entertainment industry. You have the kung fu guy, the Asian guy that is always the kung fu guy, or the emperor, or all of these different stereotypes that people put Asian people in the entertainment industry, and it kind of bleeds over into their real lives. He talks about having to assimilate to American culture, or assimilate to the way that people think Asian people should be. Several comments about, you are so well spoken, or you have no accent, or they're expecting you to have an accent, so you kind of adopt and become into this person that you aren't really, just to fit in where you think you should fit in. And so incredibly well done. The audiobook is like 4 hours long, and I think if you have the time, you should definitely devote it to reading this book, because it's very, very good. And then next up we have Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. This is a middle grade story about a young girl whose brother has gone missing, and one afternoon she comes home from school and there is a knock at her door. There is a guy that delivers a note to her that says, at midnight, you will go to the back of your brother's closet and there will be a briefcase. Open that briefcase. And when she does, there's a pair of goggles in there. She puts the goggles on and she sees her brother. And this kind of opens her eyes to this magical world. She starts going to this summer camp full of magical people, and she goes from there. I think not only is this world super interesting, but the character growth that we see in this story is so fantastic. I love that we see the main character go from being this like very secluded and very down on herself character to flourishing. She has always felt like she is the lesser sibling. She has always kind of put herself down and realized and told herself that she's never going to be as good as her brother. But through the exploration of friendship and her own magic, she kind of grows out of that, and this is a wonderful story, and I'm so excited to see more of the series and where it's going to go and grow. So next up we have Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. This is the prequel book to The Hate U Give, and it follows Mav, who is Star's father. And this is back when he is a teenager. He has been told that he is going to be a father, and the mother is unable to take care of the child, so she leaves the child with him, and him navigating the world as a gang member, as a now father, and as a student, as just a teenage boy in general. This is fan-freaking-tastic. Angie Thomas is another writer that doesn't pack punches, and she's very intentional with the way that she writes. This is different flow-wise than The Hate U Give. The Hate U Give has like a very linear plot, whereas this is kind of just following in Mav's life. But the relationships that you see and the growth that you see from Mav is absolutely beautiful. And I think if you like Angie Thomas's writing and you like and trust in her abilities, then you should really pick this up. This story is so impactful to me, because this is just following the daily life of someone and putting yourself in someone's shoes that you might have never, a life you've never maybe experienced before. Stories like that, the simple stories where you're just seeing someone's experience, I think that have the most impact. So next up we actually have a erotica novella called The Roommate by Brandy Bush. This doesn't have an HGA or an HFN, so it's not a romance, it's just erotica, and it is about a woman who goes on like college vacation or something like that, and she stays with her roommate's parents, and she has like a crush on them. Absolutely love this. It is sexy as hell. I fully believed the chemistry right off the bat, and it was fantastic. So I would so recommend reading this. So good, so sexy, really short. So next up I read Lore Olympus. This is a webcomic on Webtoons. It is a Hades and Persephone retelling. Absolutely stunning. The artwork is fan-fucking-tastic. The storytelling, all of it is just so perfect. I love the growth that you see in the characters, the little bit of mystery, the romance is so cute. Hades is like this little being that is just awkward and so cute. Like the whole dynamic of the story is just so good. There are some trigger warnings in this, but the author does a fantastic job putting them before each story. So if that's something you're concerned with, they'll let you know that those triggers are in the chapter before you start it. But so worth reading. Just like, wow. Next up, we will talk about 2 books from Rilzy Adams, who is probably my favorite romance author, just like ever. I read Deeper, which is the like epilogue to Go Deep, which was one of my favorite romances last year. But Go Deep is like a cute epilogue about their wedding. Just like, if you know me, I do not care about people once they're happy, but I love this couple so much that it was just so cute and so awesome to just sit in that happiness with them. And then I also read Love Scammed, which I think is her newest release. It came out in February, and this is like a getaway enemies kind of miscommunication to lovers, and they slowly form a romance, and it's so so sexy. She does a fantastic job of like building a believable relationship in such few pages, and I love her writing, and it just was fantastic. It was so atmospheric, and the getaway scenes were great. I liked it. All right, next up, my next 5-star read that I want to talk about is Rush by Brianna Hale. Okay, listen, I am not a rock star romance person. I don't like the whole like fame and paparazzi and all that. I think that is boring, but this was so fucking good. This was so good. And wow. So this follows Dree and Rush, and Dree is a choreographer, and she previously had a bad relationship with a rocker, and that kind of has left her scarred. She doesn't really want to be in the public eye, and she kind of wants to just escape it all. But Rush, who is the lead singer of a rival rock band to the band that kind of fucked her over, comes to her and says, I want you to choreograph my music video. And their relationship is so freaking cute. Rush is like the ideal. The ideal. He is a cute little bean, but he goes stern so quick, and I love their dynamic. I think this is like the definition of romance, in my opinion. They are so communicative. They listen to each other's needs. They never tell each other, like, I'm not doing that, like in the bedroom and things like that. And they are willing to explore dynamics with each other that they haven't really done before. And it just is so beautiful. There is a specific scene that is like the central conflict that absolutely broke my heart for both of them. And I love the way it was handled. Just everything about this was so perfect. I think the growth that we see from them individually and together is just so... they're both little soft beans, and I loved it so much. And if you are interested in romance and you don't mind maybe some daddy little play or daddy kink, then I would highly recommend you read this. The little play isn't like super deep in this one, but there definitely is like the daddy aspect, and so freaking good. All right, and then the last 5-star I want to talk to you about today is actually The Uncertain Sea, Fear is Everywhere, Embrace It by Bonnie Sue. This is I want to say like a personal essay, but it's written in the time of quarantine, and it's relating the fear of quarantine to the fear of sharks. And she works alongside a friend who is a animal conservationist, and he works with sharks. And it's so good. I love sharks. Just that the respect and love for them is deep, but I loved this. It's a fantastic read. It's just a quick little, like, it's almost like a tackling fear sort of thing, and it was fantastic. So those are all of the 5-star reads that I've had in 2021 so far. Hopefully we will have a bajillion more. Let me know down in the comments your 5-star reads so far. I would love to hear them. And other than that, I will catch you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching.